Welcome to You and Your Money. Today, we're kicking off a special 4-part series on how you can get ahead of the great wealth transfer that's happening over the next decade or so. This will be the largest wealth transfer in our history. I'm Jim Zahansky, Senior Partner and Chief Strategist at WHZ Strategic Wealth Advisors.
I'm Lisa Langevin, Managing Partner Advisory at WHC.
I'm Lawrence Hale, Senior Partner and Chief Investment Officer at WHC.
And I'm Attorney Allison Poirier, Partner at KKC Law.
Welcome. Together, we'll take you through everything you need to know about the great wealth transfer and how to prepare. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start off by answering the question, what is the great wealth transfer? The great wealth transfer really has to do with the understanding that the significant amount of wealth that is currently with generations like baby boomers is going to be transitioned to younger generation, like Generation X, Millennials, Generation Z, and to the tune of $84 trillion. These dollars will be transferred to a generation that needs to know how to plan for it, both from a financial planning point of view and a legal point of view, so that we can get it right for them.
Yeah, 84 trillion is a really big number, and it's not going to be distributed evenly. People need to make sure that they're planning for what they may receive and also have the right expectations. There is a disconnect between the expectations of heirs, thinking they're going to receive somewhere around $350,000, and those that are actually leaving their estates. And those figures from baby boomers expect to leave more like $250,000. So there's a disconnect there, and that requires some thoughtful planning and conversations in advance to make sure that these transfers happen effectively.
That's so true, Lawrence. And Allison, given your experience practicing estate law, what's your take on the big picture on all of this from a legal perspective?
So the important thing to take home, I think, is that what you have today is not what you're always going to have. There's going to be concerns with spending your money on long-term healthcare expenses, rising taxes, inflation. So the dollars and cents in your bank account now won't be the dollars and cents necessarily when you pass. Even things like probate court costs and delays, even after you pass, the number that you pass away with isn't going to be the number the beneficiaries ultimately receive.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just to Allison's point about how much they might potentially receive, it's really encouraging families to figure out, okay, who's going to receive this wealth? When are they going to receive this wealth? And what types of accounts are they going to get? I mean, there's a huge planning opportunity here for both from a financial and a legal standpoint. And it really would be a good practice for families and clients to really get on how this will be transferred, because it'll be pretty significant.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of $84 trillion passing hands to new generations really adapts new potential goals that each of these inheritors has, right? And, if we look at those generations like Generation X, they may be in the workforce now. They may be at peak years of income. So we need to think of what they're going to inherit, and how they inherit it could implicate their lifetime taxes, their future tax liability. The same thing could be true, for Generation Z and millennials. Some may exist in their early 40s all the way down into their teens. Each of those people are going to have different goals with the money they inherit and when they inherit it. So, in essence, that 84 trillion that's going to change hands probably goes to a bunch of people who have significantly different financial goals than the people that are, giving them the money or leaving the money for them as they leave life.
It's really true. And how you're investing may differ depending on who may be receiving the assets. And then obviously the recipient may have different timelines and goals, as well as tax situations that require different levels of liquidity, different levels of risk, different comfort with different types of investments, as well as different philosophies in how to invest and how to articulate their values and their personal mark on, what choices they make from an investment standpoint.
So we've talked about how wealth transfer can affect financial planning and investment choices. But Allison, what about any impacts on planning from the legal perspective?
But I think while planning is good, it's coming up with a plan is only half the battle. You have to communicate the plan to the beneficiaries you're ultimately leaving this money to, so they're not left wondering, what is the plan? What am I supposed to be doing next? It can really mean for a very painful transition to the next generation if they're not really prepared, or or don't really fully understand what they're supposed to be doing. So I think outlining the plan, communicating that to the folks who are going to need to pick up the pieces, I mean, executors, trustees, as well as beneficiaries, so they can start to make their own plans. And even to kind of fully following through on your own plan. Yes, it's great to say I have a trust, but we'll have you update into your beneficiary designations to actually make sure assets end up into the trust.
Have you funded the trust?
Exactly. That's a big one. We see it a lot, unfortunately, where people create these trusts and then ultimately the number one goal of the trust, which is to avoid probate, isn't accomplished because they never funded it.
I mean, just to further Allison's point, a lot of time you'll hear clients like, oh, I don't need to do estate planning. I don't have a lot of wealth. Well, whether you have 500,000, you have $1 million, 50 million, estate planning and making sure lining up who the beneficiaries are, who the heirs are that are going to receive this, and then educating them. Like a lot of times we'll have beneficiaries that come in from that next generation that have no idea what type of accounts they're inheriting or how they work from a tax perspective. And so really important to set up the structure. Estate planning is for everybody needs an estate plan. So very.
Thank you, Raisel.
We actually, Allison and I were catching up before we started the podcast, and we were talking about how nice it is that we work together and collaborate on client plans, and their firm is in the habit of sending us the documents, so we make sure that those get updated. And I think that's a huge, to your point about, okay, I have a trust, but I didn't put anything in the trust, or we didn't execute on that. So that's a really, for at least from our standpoint.
Yeah, it's also super helpful to work with such great advisors like you guys, because a lot of times we sit down and talk to clients to say, well, how to give us an overview of what you have, because that may impact the plan you set out. Come to find out, oh, did you need to know about that IRA, or did you need to know I had that investment account? So when working with advisors like you guys, it helps put the whole puzzle together for us. And when we're putting together the plan, it really accomplishes what the clients are looking for.
Yeah, and I think the idea of having an estate plan doesn't mean, I think someone said it, like, you don't need to be wealthy, right? If you have a retirement account, you should make sure the beneficiary is right according to your estate plan. At a very basic level, regardless of the generational wealth transfer, everyone should have a will, a power of attorney, and a healthcare proxy. And these change often. So you have to sort of be sure, and we do this in our meetings, are they right? And are they timely? And if not, that's a great chance to be sure we're collaborating with attorneys right. What amplifies this situation is that the great wealth transfer is a significant amount of dollars, both saved in retirement plans and in non-retirement plans, that complicates estate planning. And to be certain about it, the combination of financial planning, what WHZ does, and legal planning, what KKC does, is to be sure that when you're passing those dollars along, there are no unintended consequences, like increased tax liability, like it didn't get to the person I wanted it to get to. And are your goals as the person leaving the money, are you okay? Have you spelled them out somewhere for the person inheriting the money? Or do they have free reign on how to use it? These are all really, really good conversations to have, both from a financial planning point of view and a legal planning point of view. And that's really how we collaborate on behalf of the client together.
And often clients, when you first meet with them, you ask them, have they done an estate plan? They say, yes, they did when my kids were young. And things have changed. There may have been marriages, divorces, job changes, different assets that have been accrued over time. And, we've got life happening for clients, which requires an assessment periodically, as well as the rules change. Laws change, tax laws, estate tax laws change, as well as retirement account rules change as well. And all of those things make for the need, really the absolute need to collaborate with experts in the various fields of financial planning and the legal community. So.
And one thing I'm sure you guys have heard all the time. So you ask the question of, do you have an estate plan? Oh yeah, I have a will. And it's okay. Well, that may or not be a full estate plan. A lot of times too, we're asking, well, do you have a financial advisor? Oh yeah, I got a guy. Well, who is it? Oh, he manages the 401k for my whole office. And I say, you don't have a guy. So all the more reason that, Lawrence, exactly to your point, to have trusted professionals who are really looking out for you and your interests can make a big difference.
So I'd say let's get practical. I mean, what should families and clients be thinking about as they're thinking through this wealth transfer?
Yeah, Allison said earlier, have conversations. So if you're talking to your financial advisor and you're setting goals, you have to think about that legacy that you're leaving. I know in every meeting we have with clients, we're recognizing how much may be left at the end of life based on our assumptions. And then you're saying, well, is that okay? Do you want to spend more now? Do you want to leave more later? What are your wishes? Once you align on that with your partner or whoever you're deciding that estate plan on, talking about it with your family members who are the inheritors is really a critical step that Allison pointed out earlier. And we can't stress it enough to be sure that everyone sort of knows the plan if you're comfortable with it and that it's executed the way you want to leave your money.
Yeah, and I would say one addition onto that would be getting an inventory of your assets and your and what your liabilities are and what your intentions, to your point, to what your intentions are. Like, where are your retirement accounts? Do you have a business interest? Are there other assets that you have that are outside of the normal investments that you have? So that's a key one. And I know we request that when we work with our clients, and attorneys do as well.
Yeah, it's critical to really have transparency over the entire financial picture. And Allison, I think you said it earlier, which is, do you need to know about this retirement account or this life insurance policy? Yeah, this is all part of your financial picture, and understanding how these pieces fit in could either lead to unintended consequences or what you may not want to happen, and have some pretty negative consequences for the beneficiaries. But those conversations are key. Sometimes they can be uncomfortable, but if you do it in an authentic way, and oftentimes we see clients want to come in and actually have us help facilitate a conversation, maybe with limited information disclosed, but start the relationship and, say, hey, if something ever happens to me, call Liza, call Jim, so that there is some continuity and awareness that they have some trusted professionals to help them navigate in collaboration with, their estate planning attorneys.
Yeah, and part of the wealth transfer, I think a lot of people lose sight of. They just focus on the end result. I'm going to get these dollars, but there's a physical transfer that has to happen. You have to contact your advisors. You have to fill out the forms. So even that communication becomes key there too, because an executor, a trustee, these people actually have to know where your accounts are, and they have to know who your advisors are. They have to know your passwords to get into these accounts a lot of times. So having that communication is so important, even to the side of becoming incapacitated during your lifetime, making sure that wealth is preserved and it's there. If somebody's stepping in and paying your bills, again, for them to walk in and say, well, we know mom and dad have stuff, but I just don't know where it is. It can be really traumatic. So to have just that flow of information, that communication, is probably the biggest tip I can give.
To further that, so of course, these are living, breathing, are the plans that we build for clients. It's not like you build it and then that's what it is. It evolves over time. And so just making sure that you're going back to revisit the estate documents, the financial plan, the investments. And as Lawrence mentioned earlier, I mean, tax laws change, retirement account laws change. And so there's just so much that could happen, and you want to make sure you're on top of those. And that's why having a trusted team to look out for you is really key.
And I'll add one other thing that I think is often overlooked is the state of your assets, and leaving things in an orderly fashion. Allison, you were talking about it a moment ago about, what is the inventory? Where are all of these things that you then have to deal with practically? And oftentimes, clients may come in and they have 27 different accounts and stock at the transfer agents and various pots of money. If they don't have some structure and organization to those, and then have communicated that to their beneficiaries or their executor, it can be a very burdensome process, a difficult process, at a very challenging point in life when you lose someone that's important to you. So making sure you don't overlook that part of having some structure and organization, and again, some trusted professionals who can help guide you.
Yeah, and usually those trusted professionals can provide that structure and organization through net worth statements and knowing where the documents are. Attorneys may know what intended wishes are through their legal documents. And, there could be these tools are the things that generally help clients through these tougher times. And to your point, if they don't have them, it becomes a challenge in a challenging time. Yeah. On the idea that beyond even, we generally hear this concept of the great wealth transfer, and we throw out dollars like, 84 trillion changing hands. So true. If the objective though is to keep the wealth in the family, there's quite a bit that can be thought about that relates to building more wealth for that next generation, all the way from, understanding the cash flow plan at the age you are. If you inherit at age 20 versus age 50, there's a significant difference in the time value of money, the investment strategy you might consider, your own goals, your own estate plan, all the way down to, are you, philanthropic? What sort of legacy do you want to leave for the next generation? And how do those wishes fit into an estate plan that Allison's team could draw up to make sure your wishes are coming true? So yes, the dollar amount's significant on the initial transfer, but imagine what it could be for the generation beyond you if done well.
It doesn't necessarily have to be an end of life either. There often are estate planning strategies that actually make a lot of sense while you're living, whether it be philanthropic or charitable trusts, those types of things, donor advised funds, or, annual gifting. Often we'll talk with clients and we'll hear them say, well, my adult children are in their 50s. They could really use the money now. Well, what's the smart way to do it that doesn't have any unintended consequences while still factoring that into their own financial plan and needs, so that, if there's figuring out the right strategy that makes sense, both for the financial plan and their estate plan.
Yeah, and I love the idea of clients coming in early, being proactive, because to your point, there's things we can do that aren't necessarily always just geared towards how does it get to the next person when I pass. It might be setting them up for more success now. It might be, again, taking advantage of tax laws that are in effect now that could potentially change with the next administration. So also things like asset protection, if we are worried about taxes, if there's a big concern about long-term care costs, kind of the further in advance we start talking about that, started doing that planning, more options we have available to us.
And some assets take a long time to work through. If you have a closely held business or some other illiquid asset or a family property that you want to keep, that can take some time to put into place.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would just say one final thought too is that next generation, you're setting up these great plans, and in the next episode we'll actually dig into a bit how the next generation is thinking a little bit differently about receiving that wealth and sort of what it means for them and how investing is changing and evolving in this evolving world that we live in. And so that'll be an interesting topic to get into.
We covered a lot of topics today, and we do have many tools, resources, and conversation starters about generational wealth transfer and estate planning, particularly in our guide, Smart Strategies to Maximize Generational Wealth Transfer. That can be found on our website at wacwealth.com or at kkclaw.com. You can download this free guide that should be very helpful as you have these conversations amongst yourself and potentially with your family. And we really appreciate the time you've spent with us. And we look forward to helping you live with absolute confidence, unwavering partnership for life.
Join us 2 weeks from today for the next episode in the Getting Ahead of the Great Wealth Transfer series, where we'll share the new things to know about creating generational wealth. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe to You and Your Money on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform.
For more information regarding wealth management and customized financial planning with WHZ Strategic Wealth Advisors, please visit WHZwealth.com. WHZ Strategic Wealth Advisors offer securities and advisory services through Commonwealth Financial Network, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. Fixed insurance products and services offered through CES Insurance Agency. They practice at 697 Pomfret Street, Pomfret Center, Connecticut 06259, and 392A Marrow Road, Tolland, Connecticut 06084. They can be reached at 860-928-2341, WHZ Strategic Wealth. Advisors do not provide legal or tax advice. The tenured financial services team strives to support clients in achieving their financial life goals while providing absolute confidence and unwavering partnership for life.